Yeah. Hello and welcome everyone to the Grove. My name is Birch, and I'm going to be talking tonight about the magic of trees. So, as you can imagine, I've been practicing with a lot of tree magic for pretty much as long as I can remember. Even before I was old enough to really know I was doing magic, I was still like out there hanging out with the trees, talking to trees. I knew like all the trees in the backyard like really well. When I was like 5 years old, I would just go hang out and talk to them. And it just sort of got older and older. And then when I just was looking for a magical path, I was going this way and that way and that way. And I really couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to be for a long time, pagan-wise. The only thing I could agree on was I really liked trees. So I decided that my path was the trees. Because, you talk about a path through the forest. Well, all around the forest paths are trees. So therefore, my path was just right there where the trees were. And now I practice German paganism, as you've seen from some of my other classes. But I still love trees. No matter where I go, I love my trees. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about tree magic, ways to interact and work with trees magically, ways to share energy with trees. And we were originally going to be doing a practical end of the class outside with the trees here at the mead hall. However, Mother Nature and the sky gods had other plans for us this evening, and they unleashed a monsoon upon Florida tonight. So we are going to be doing actually a meditation that I thought up this evening instead, that I think is going to be really valuable and really helpful for a lot of people trying to work with tree magic. So let us begin. Trees. Trees are really remarkably complex living organisms. You may hear the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, think of how many trees you might see in your daily life. How often do you really stop to consider what that tree is as an individual, or as part of a family? In a forest, trees are often related. There's mama tree, has baby trees, then comes grandma tree, and it can be as complex as the forest panda, which is all one massive living organism. Arguably the largest organism on the earth ever, because it looks like a forest, but it's all one tree. They're all connected under the root systems. So these trees, they've been part of human life for as long as there's been humans. They talk about the evolution of our biped bodies happened when we went from, being tree dwellers in the forest to being creatures of the open savanna, and how that change in our lives also marked a shift from, pre-human, pre-Homo sapien to Homo sapiens. And so trees have also kind of always represented that wild other side. If you've ever read or heard of the story of Gilgamesh, there's that famous opening story when he and his partner Enkidu went off into the forest and slew the cypress guardian Humbaba to cut down the trees and bring them back. And they talked about how this was necessary because killing Humbaba was a symbolic way of transforming the forest from its own entity into something tamed by humanity. And that story is like 5,000 years old. So the story of humans and trees and our interactions with each other, they're all the way back to the very beginnings of the human story and the human psyche. And if you consider what we've done as, tool users, the very first tool we ever used as a species was the stick. And, the trees were our first homes. So when we work and we tap into that tree magic, we're going back to the very roots of the human experience. And so trees have natural guardian spirits, sometimes called dryads, hammer dryads. It's probable that Humbaba is the first ever referenced tree guardian. But there's other tree guardians that you'll find throughout literature and throughout human stories. And the tree guardians, the dryad, the tree spirits, they protect their trees. So whenever you're going to work with a tree, magically, or otherwise, cut one, work with one, do anything, always make sure that you talk to the tree and you get permission. And I have actually a story about the time I acquired this piece of birch right here. So up in one of the birch forests up in Pine River, Minnesota, my parents used to own this land up there. And from the time I was really little, like I said, I would love to run in there and I would talk to the trees, and I was friends with all the trees basically. And they were friends with me. And after I moved to Florida, I wanted to bring some of the tree back with me. I wanted to bring something from there back with me. So that time I went into the woods and I had a handsaw with me. The whole energy of the woods changed in an instant the moment they saw the saw. And they were all staring at me. They were not happy. I said to them, look, I understand, I don't want to hurt any of you, but I miss you and I want something to take home with me. So is there anything we can do? And they said, well, you take nothing from the living, take only from the dead. And then as I was walking through, I came to a place where a birch tree had fallen down in a windstorm. And it was laying on the ground, dead. And they said, you can take nothing from the living, take only from the dead. So that tree, I cut some of the branches off, cut this branch, couple other pieces off and turn them wood chips, different things. So that way I would have bits of that tree with me magically down here if I wanted to do anything with birch magic to remind me of back home. And then a couple of very weird things happened at the same time in the forest. My dad had brought a chainsaw in to try and cut some of the clearing. It died. Turns out every time you brought a chainsaw into that forest, it would die. They didn't last more than 5 minutes in there. And I explained to my dad why that was, and he kind of got really confused. Because I was telling him that it's because he needs to appease the tree guardians before he starts cutting anything. But my dad's not a pagan, so it kind of went over his head. The other weird thing, so bear in mind, this is in a 3-acre plot surrounded by other basically no buildings, no structures, no people, no nothing, till you go down the road a ways. And as I was walking back out of the woods, I looked down, and there's a large, lacy shawl of green fabric laying on the ground in front of me. And I looked at it, and I heard someone say, you listen to us, we appreciate it, picked it up, walked out of the woods with it, and my parents were like, where'd that come from? And I said, the tree spirits gave it to me. Which was the truth, but they couldn't understand it. I'm not even sure how the tree spirits wound up with a piece of green fabric, but however they got it there, I'm just saying, this is why working with the trees, working with that magic is so much better, so much richer than working against them. So the moral of the story is, when you are going to do anything working with living trees, be honest, be upfront, be willing to work with them. If they say, don't take anything from the living, take only from the dead, it's because there probably is a tree in there somewhere who did die, who can pass on its magic and its life force to you and let you continue to work with it and give it kind of a life after death beyond just returning to the earth. And then that's fair, because nothing living got hurt, and the one that was dead can have its wishes respected. But yeah, don't forget that you're dealing with a life form, a living creature that is not really looks different, but really is no different than us from dogs, cats. And you won't go up to a dog and just chop it, hurt the dog to get what you want from the dog. You shouldn't do the same to a tree either. It's just as wrong to do it to a tree or any form of plant life as it is to any other living mammal. So that said, you'll sometimes come across old spells that talk about things like pounding a nail into a tree or doing other things, like breaking it off, but don't do that. There's other ways to work with that are more respectful and better for the tree, and we'll go over that. So, and part of that too, if not just for the tree's sake, but also for your own, whatever energy goes into that moment of creating the thing, like taking the branch, taking the sticks, bark, whatever energy goes into that moment is going to transfer into the magic that you do with it. So take wand making, for example. You always hear, you should do as little harm as possible and always get permission before you make your wand, or to take wand off a living tree. Because if you hurt the tree, guess what? That pain is now going to go into the wand, and every magic you do cast with that wand is going to be felt in your magic. So, when I made my wand, I actually went around to several of the trees and I spoke with all of them. It wasn't this wand, it was my first wand. I spoke with all of them, but I didn't want any one tree to feel pressured. So I spoke with several trees and asked, if any of them wanted to share. One did, broke off a piece of its, piece of one of its branches for my wand. And, now I have a very close connection with that tree as well, magically speaking. Whenever I go back home, I always make sure to say hello to that, as well as my little saplings, which I'll talk about here at great length, no doubt. They've heard me talk about them. And, so you want to, what magic you take, you also want to give back. You want to share. With trees, you always want to be as reciprocal a relationship as it can be. So yeah, friendship with a tree, really not all that strange. And there's other benefits to taking magic from trees or places you work with, like this one here. It's because just as we find, I'm sure if you've ever do you guys work with a familiar? Mm-hmm. When you work with a familiar, it's different than just working with a random animal, because you have that bond, you have that connection that you share, and so that makes any working a lot easier, a lot smoother, a lot more powerful. It's the same with trees and forests. You're going to get even better results when you take or you work with someplace that you've been to many times compared to a place you've never seen before. And so your best results will always come from the relationships you form with the trees around you. So back to my saplings. So when my parents built the house at the lake, we had a cabin before they replaced it with a house. And when we built the house, there was this beautiful old oak tree that unfortunately had to come down to make room for the house. Well, we talked to the builder, we incorporated, actually the stairs going up to upstairs in the house are made from the oak of that same tree. We wanted to incorporate any way that we could. And then that summer, it was the summer of 2008, the economic crash, and I ended up living and going to school up in northern Minnesota that summer, and basically helped my parents look after the yard, finish things up in the house, and then we adopted these 16 saplings, who were, like, at the time no higher than my knee, just cute little baby trees, white and red pines and one Black Hill spruce, because we were getting the 15 white and red pines, and then there was this little Black Hill spruce that was just so cute, I just wanted him. So I threw him in the box of trees too, at the nursery. I took them home and I planted them. Every day I would water them and pat them on the head and tell them what tall, beautiful trees they were going to grow up to be. And they're like my children. And now I go home and I visit my saplings. And my Black Hill spruce is 10 feet tall. A couple of the whites are almost 12 now. They're all huge. They're all going to probably outlive me by 200 years. But, it's kind of like their legacy will live on. And what we shared together will live on even after I'm gone. I'll be dead and dust, and they'll still be growing and getting bigger and taller and wider every day. So, there's a lot you can do with making friends with trees, and it's very simple. Just, give them water, share magic, talk to them. Just like that story that I shared with our at our Beltane ritual. You give it water, you talk to it, you sing to it, you give it all the light and energy that it needs, and they grow up tall and beautiful. So now I'd like to just go into a few examples of tree magic. Perhaps one of the most important and common areas of tree magic is in healing. No mistake, obviously, Alba, that we start our healing spell with, dig your roots down deep into the Mother Earth and drop her healing and loving energy. Pull that love and light into you. Because the Earth is a healer. The Earth's energies can heal and ground and protect us. And trees are like the ultimate embodiment of as above, so below. Their branches go up to the sky, their roots go into the earth. Their trunk is Midgard. Their trunk is the space between the worlds. So when you do healing magic with a tree, you can pull that energy, but they also have practical uses for healing. Almost all non-poisonous trees can be used for some kind of healing magic. So one example I use a lot is willow bark. Willow bark is great for pain, menstrual cramps, and the pain from a broken collarbone.
And fever.
And fever. Exactly. It's
aspirin.
It's what aspirin was made from. They took willow bark essence, distilled it, put it in a pill, and sold it as aspirin. So willow bark, but you can use oak, and all kinds of trees are good for different healing properties. And if you ever want to kind of learn more about that, books like Llewellyn's, Herbs and Healing. I think it's Llewellyn's Book of Herbs. I think it's
Herbs
is that one.
And there is trees.
There's a book on trees that they have too, yeah. That will have a lot of good information about healing and other purposes with trees. And so actually, and then you can further enhance that tree magic, like with willow bark, by incorporating then spell work and chant work into your thing. So as you, when you pour and you steep the willow bark, you add the honey, because it's very bitter. You make your spin, and you can see it's kind of like nurturing willow, healing bark, help my pain to soon depart. And you repeat that over and over again as you stir your tea, and then that will then further enhance the healing properties of your tea. But it's not just the products from the tree, but as I mentioned, the trees themselves that can have tremendous healing properties. For a healing with a tree, it's usually best to pick a tree that's a little bit older, taller, sturdier, and in good health itself. Do not try this so much with really young trees, really small trees, or trees that are already unwell, because they may not have the strength themselves to be the best partner for any major healing work that you're trying to do. And again, always be clear about your intentions and give the tree the opportunity to back out if it doesn't want to participate, because the tree will know its own limits and its own strengths, and it might be able to point you onto a better tree for what you're trying to do. And so then you would put your hand on the trunk of the tree, and you might say something like, "Oh great tree, oh strong tree, take my pain that I may be free." Then, you rest your injured body part against the tree and feel yourself merging, pain and all, with the tree. You sort of this quiet, meditative, slow moment while you kind of just embrace the tree. You're leaning your back or your arm or whatever's hurting you up against the tree, and you just let yourself become one with the tree in your mind. And then once you've done that, you can send your pain down through the trunk of the tree into the roots, where it will mingle with the healing energies of the earth, and then you can pull that healing energy up with the tree into your body and help help with your injury, help with whatever's been hurting you. And you can also do this, like say you're hiking or somewhere and you need to restore some of your depleted energy. You can do the same kind of spell, except instead of like healing, just pull up some of the earth's energy into your body, replenish yourself, and then you'll feel better. And once you're done, be sure to thank the tree, leave some kind of offering, if possible, all natural, something biodegradable and safe, and just leave that at the base of the tree, or maybe like a piece of some food, maybe some water. If you have nothing else, just pour a little bit of your water on its roots. You want to make sure you give something back to the tree, whatever you may have on hand. And another form of magic very commonly used with trees is divination spells. So the most famous of which is probably the Ogham tree alphabet of the Druids. I see Balder back there nodding when I mentioned Druids, yes. So the Ogham tree alphabet was probably created sometime between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. There's over 300 surviving Ogham descriptions today on stones all across the British Isles. A lot of them were made on wood, which unfortunately doesn't survive 2,000 years quite so well.
Unless in mud.
Yes, unless they're in mud. And so the Ogham alphabet consists of vertical and horizontal lines, or angled, I think a couple, angled lines and notches, each of which stand for a letter, and each of those letters are derived from the name for a tree. And if you want to make your own set of Ogham, you take 21 straight sticks of even lengths, and then you can either carve or paint the Ogham alphabet on them, one on each stick. And then you consecrate them using sacred oils, or I would probably take a little bit of dirt and sprinkle some dirt on them to consecrate them too with the earth. And then you store them in usually a fabric bag, maybe a crocheted bag. And then if you have a question you want to consult the Ogham on, you do the divination, you take the bag, you hold it in your hands, and you meditate on that question. Then you ask 3 times. Say you ask your question once, ask your question a second time, ask your question a third time. And you can draw, different guides will tell you different numbers. I would usually go for 9, pulled out in 3 sets of 3s, because 3 and 9 are both sacred numbers, and I'm a German pagan, so I like the number 9. It's a good Norse number. And so then you would pull them out, hold your sticks, and then toss them onto a flat surface and read the results. If it falls closer to you, that refers to current influences. If it lands further away, that's like a future influence, and anything that overlaps means that those 2 sticks are influencing each other. And as with healing, trees can also provide divination and insight more directly. If you want to know something that's happening far away, and I've actually done this, or get a read on current events that may influence the future, you can learn them directly from the trees. Because trees have, between the wind and the root systems of the earth, once you learn to speak with a tree, you can hear things that are happening hundreds of miles away from a tree on the wind. It does take some practice, and I find it usually only happens when the trees already know me pretty well. For example, it happened up in the forest where I spend a lot of time, not so much as with a random tree on the street. So I'm sure if it's bad enough, they could probably let you know as well. But I find it works best in forest settings where the trees know me very, very well. And what you do is you sit down, or you put your hand on the trunk of the tree, and if there's something specific you want to know, you can just ask the tree directly, how is so-and-so doing today? If you know someone far away who's sick or ill, you might get news of them. How are they doing today? Or, you might ask a direct question. Or if you want to just know something in general, what's going on, what stories are blowing on the wind today? What news is blowing on the wind today? And just ask the tree. And then just sit very quietly and stare up into the leaves and leave your mind blank. Because whenever I talk about hearing what the tree is saying, listening to the tree, trees don't have mouths. They're not going to speak to you with words. You have to just let your mind go blank, look up into the tree, and just keep your mind and your thoughts as clear as they can possibly be, and just wait. And then just listen to whatever you might be hearing, whatever might be coming your way at that moment, because that's the tree talking to you. You can feel that energy, you can feel that intention from the tree. Keep your eyes open, keep your eyes alert, listen to the wind, and hear what might be carried, what news might be coming to you. Sounds weird, but I've actually done it, and I've been spot on. Because then I call people and they're like, how did you know that? And I say, a tree told me. This is how I get a reputation for weirdness among the muggles. Do I look weird to you guys?
No.
Not at all, right? Okay. And notice how sometimes I'm talking about like individual trees, other times about forests. There's also within a forest, there's usually clusters of trees or sometimes individual trees who have extra power where the energy of that forest is especially concentrated. Sometimes it's with a very old tree. Like if you walk through an older natural forest and you see like the pine tree that's like that big around and 200 feet high, that's grandma tree of the whole forest, that whole area of the forest. And so there's oftentimes an incredible pool of energy by the really big, really old trees. I can only imagine what it must be like out there in California with the redwoods. Because some of those trees are so, I'm sure it's just amazing. But trees are also enhanced by their familial relationships with the trees around them. Clumps of trees have historically been protected and cultivated as sacred groves. And together, those trees create a web of energy, which the humans can then tap into when they're doing their magical rituals. That's why when you read about druids gathering in sacred groves of like oak, ash, and thorn, and all their other famous trees, especially oaks with mistletoe, that's why. Because that circle of trees related and magically bound together has even more energy than any one individual tree in that forest can muster. Just like how if you do a group ritual, the energy is often much stronger than if you do an individual ritual. It's the same thing with trees. If you have a group of trees who are closely linked to each other, and you have a group of people who are closely linked to each other, you have two groups of very closely linked magical entities working together, you can imagine how powerful that magic becomes. So the oak tree by itself, is strong, but a grove of oaks is even stronger. And again, I see my beloved druid over there nodding very happily. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the different kinds of trees, especially ones you might see here in Florida, and what kind of magic are their specialties. Because all trees can kind of do some magic, kind of like people, they can do anything, but people have different specialties, and so do trees. So each tree might be unique. You might find one tree that may not normally do this, but that tree just happens to go in for that thing. But in general, so if you take like a coconut palm, a coconut tree, they're often used in spells and magic related to purity, chastity, and healing. Of course, I'm going to talk about birch. Birch is a tree of fertility, growth, and new beginnings. After a natural disaster, the birch tree is usually one of the first to grow right back up on that hill, because birch trees love the sun. And so they'll do whatever it takes to get that sun, to get that hill. I know birch trees that have grown literally like out like that across the lake just to get more sun. And so they are peaceful, quiet, elegant, but very much determined survivors. Eucalyptus trees, commonly used for healing magic and healing rituals. Obviously, eucalyptus balm and eucalyptus is great for a lot of healing properties as a thing. The cypress I found interesting. The cypress trees, of course, in Florida, everywhere from like Lake Okeechobee down, except for the pine ridges along the higher ground and the mangroves at the coast. All of that was cypress. Massive, huge cypress trees, probably as big as those sequoias were. Thousands of years old in some cases. Unfortunately, the humans came and cut them all down when Florida was conquered by the Europeans. And they went into the building of a lot of old Florida homes, factories, all kinds of things. But there's only a few groves left, and most of those are only a couple of 100 years old. But cypresses are often linked with past lives and protective magics. So you can just imagine what it must have been like down here in Florida when those cypresses were still alive and thriving along the inner parts, probably right where we're standing, considering that we're almost to the glades, but not quite. Just imagine.
We planted 2 on that side of the house. We have
Good.
2 here.
They're coming back. They're making a comeback. Oak, obviously, it works a lot with healing, strength, protection, money. Another very common tree you'll see here in Florida is the palm tree. The palm tree brings both strength and flexibility. If you ever watched the palm tree during a hurricane, you'll see how that's true. They bend, they twist, they'll give up their fronds, but they will not die. Where other trees would be like, no, I'm not letting go of my branches, I'm not letting go of my leaves. They're mine. The palm says, okay, you can have them. You can have them, wind.
Reminds me of hurricane. It was one of the hurricanes about 9-10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We had a monster of a tree. I think it was a black olive, not a black olive, not like the olives we eat. But
The big black olives. Yep.
Yeah, the big black olives. We had one fall down our street.
Mm-hmm.
It was ours. You do not, I repeat, do not want to see one of those going down again.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. It made a carpet of grass disappear.
Yes, exactly. Because other trees, they get top heavy with their leaves, but palms, they'll just flick it back and forth, and then if they have to, the fronds will fly off, but the tree lives on. So we can learn a lot, I think, from palm trees about being willing to let go of things in the middle of a storm if it means being able to fight another day. I like that about them. Pine trees. There are hundreds of species of pine trees, and but one thing a lot of them have is magic for purification, health, fertility, and prosperity. If you ever look at pines, they are amazingly persistent trees when it comes to growing. If there is a patch of dirt on a rocky mountainside, a pine tree is going to find a way to grow there. They are capable of growing almost anywhere, and because they keep their leaves, their needles, year-round, they're seen as symbols of rebirth and renewal. Because, when all the rest of the world is dark and cold and white, and all the birches are looking like ghosts, and the oak trees just have their little dead leaves on them, the evergreens are as green as ever. So that's just a little bit about the different kinds of trees. Now, so like I said, we're not going to be going outside in the monsoon to go hug any trees. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to give the trees here the love I was hoping we would. But I just want to go over a little bit about, how to make friends with a tree, and then we're going to go into a meditation together to practice this in our minds, since we can't do it in our bodies. So as you approach the tree, okay, you want to just start a conversation. Say hello, ask how the tree's doing, make sure the tree wants to talk with you and that you're getting a good vibe of like, okay, yeah, let's hang out, let's talk. Tree doesn't want to talk, just find another tree. When you get close enough, you can rest your hand against the tree's trunk, and this will really give you a feel for the tree's vibrations, the tree's energy, and it will also get a feel for yours. And if you're getting a really warm, fuzzy vibe, this is the time when you give the tree a little hug. And then while you're hugging the tree, one thing I really like to do is you rest your ear against the trunk of the tree, and you just kind of stand there like this against the tree. You're just holding it, and it's kind of holding you. And you're really just, kind of mentally merging and becoming one with the tree. And let all your senses have free reign at this point. Smell the tree. Hear the wind kind of moving through its branches. Feel the tree in your hands. You can probably taste the tree too, but I usually don't do that on the first meeting. And of course, look at the tree, not just with your eyes, but also with all your magical, intuitive senses, Just look at the tree and study the tree and look at the tree really carefully and just how cute and beautiful it is. And you can tell you think it's beautiful because they are. All trees are beautiful. And then, as you do that, you might take some time to talk to the tree. If you want to, hear the news on the wind, ask the tree, what's up today? What's new? What's going on? And, or maybe you just want to. Trees are great listeners. I can't tell you the number of times I've been having a rough day and I've just gone up to a tree and started telling it about my day. And then the tree listens to me, and then, you kind of talk it out with the tree, and then you start to feel a little bit better. Cry on the tree, done that a few times. Listen with your heart, with your intuition, and you can carry on an entire conversation with the tree without uttering a word. Just you and the tree just interacting, your magics just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between you and the tree. And feel your breathing, feel your heartbeat, feel the way that, you're breathing, the tree is breathing. Just breathing differently, it doesn't have lungs. It's just pulling up nutrients from the earth, pulling in nutrients from the sun, and just blending it all together and expelling the oxygen that we breathe. If it wasn't for trees, we would have no oxygen. We'd all be dead. We need the trees just as much as we need anything else, as much as we need food, as much as we need water, we need trees. And, don't overthink. Just give yourself time to be with the tree, to really just be one with the tree and love the tree and make friends with the tree. Okay, so does anyone have any questions for me at this point before we move on to the meditation? I didn't put anyone to sleep, did I? My rhapsody is about trees.
Someone's waiting.
Oh,
I can share my experience by
Yes,
doing that.
Please do.
I was at FPG several years ago, and I took one of the workshops on nature spirits, and we talked about all kinds of plants, and then we got to trees. And we were in the middle of an old oak forest, so the instructor told us to find a tree and go introduce yourself. Much like you're saying, introduce yourself, see if they're, willing to talk. And so I was walking around looking, one tree looked kind of gnarly. I walked up to him and I touched it, said hi, and, just gave a little hug and felt a little silly. And then, so I'm leaning against this tree, and the tree says, "I know your tree." And now I always pass a tree down on Griffin Road and US 1. It's a baobab. It's like 200 years old, and she's gorgeous. And we always visit Mother Tree. Sometimes we've gone out of our way to go down Griffin Road when other roads would be quicker, to say hello to this tree. But I can't touch that tree because she's got the railroad track, she's got Griffin Road, she's got US 1, she's got the airport runway. You can't park your car and go touch that tree. So the tree told me, "We're all connected. You can hug me, and I'll send your message to your tree." Just like out of the blue. How can I make that up? I don't know. So then I just hugged and hugged and hugged that tree. So the instructor of the thing goes, We're back over here now. Leave us alone.
We're having a moment here.
We're having a moment with my tree.
I
But that was
have
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
that was
I have
good.
the,
Go ahead.
this is from a fantasy book. but it speaks so much of trees. It had been a long time ago, according to her manual, that the trees had gone to war on humankind's behalf, against the dark powers that wanted to keep human intelligence from happening at all. The war had been a terrible one, lasting thousands of centuries, the trees and other plants taking more and more land, turning barren stone to soil that would support them and the animals and men to follow. The dark powers breaking the soil with earthquake and mountain building, scouring it with glaciers, climate changing good ground for desert, and burning away forest and firestorms, far more terrible than the small brush fires any forest needs to stay healthy. But the trees and the other plants have won at last. They had spent many more centuries readying the world for men, but when men came, they forgot the old debts and wasted the forest more terribly than even the old dark powers. The trees had no particular reason to be friendly to people these days.
Oh, wow. So what book is that from?
So you want to be a wizard?
So you want to be a wizard. Love your trees. Yes. All right, I'm gonna.
So it talked about the specific, like what specific trees actually did.
Nice. All right, so if we want, we can put my Bluetooth on. So for our meditation,
Do I dim the lights?
yeah, let's dim the lights.
Turn off those two. Turn off the one behind you. See if that works.
This short one, this one.
Yeah,
That's better.
need to twist down a couple of those.
Oh, they're red.
They're red, they're pretty.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Turn off the
Okay.
kitchen.
So. Yep, we'll get the ad all the way.
Like
Candy Crush.
That's why I pay the $12 a month.
Final Fantasy.
So this is gonna be like more of an open meditation than what we often do, compared to a lot of guided meditations. I want you all just to close your eyes and just take a deep breath. And out. Take another breath. And out. Just let yourself relax and breathe. And just get comfortable, loose, get all the stiffness out of your muscles. Just relax, close your eyes, and I want you to remember a place with trees, a forest, somewhere with trees, somewhere that you've loved, that you've been, that you can remember clearly. I want you to picture that place in your mind, and just hold it in your mind's eye. And then I want you to look around at all the trees you see around you and reach out with your consciousness to all these trees. Greet them. Tell them how happy you are to see them again. And see if there's any one tree in this grove of trees that particularly calls to you. A tree that you really want and that really wants you. Go up to that tree and put your hand on the tree. Greet the tree and go ahead and have a quiet conversation with it. here on out, just spend some time with that tree.